So Robert Shegog has a BA from Olivet College and a master's from Northern Arizona University. He taught history, special education, and physical ed for 32 years. He successfully coached wrestling during those years with 2 state championships and a host of state placers. He has also presented a TED, conducted diversity camps, Martin Luther King Jr. celebrations, a who's who among America's teachers in 2003, twice selected Teacher of the Year, and in 2025, Prescott Social Justice recipient. Thank you for being with us today.
I want to say thank you for having me here again. It's been about a year and a half since I was here, and I really enjoyed it, and hopefully you did as well. The words of one of my favorite songs goes, "How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul?" This song or affirmation represents the first principle or value of UU congregations, the dignity and worth of every human being. This was also an affirmation that I use when teaching and coaching. I coached in the inner city of Phoenix for 20 years. Most of my wrestlers there were not introduced to the sport until they were in high school. Many of the suburban wrestlers started at age 5 or 6 and were members of wrestling clubs. My athletes had a mindset that they were less than the suburban wrestlers. It took me 3 to 5 years to change that mindset. We drilled the same moves over and over the first half of practice. And in the meets, the wrestlers were required to use these moves first. Those who failed to follow the instructions had extra duty at the next practice. I would say to them, if your opponent cannot pin you by the 3rd period, then you can still win. We trained for overtime by jumping 100 ropes after every match. Sometimes the girlfriends and the parents would want to talk to the wrestlers after their match, and I would interrupt them and say, "What are you supposed to be doing?" My book, Wrestling with the Truth, is about my life and the success of my wrestlers and wrestlerettes. The wrestlerettes were my own private cheer squad. I plan to share my experiences since the last time I was here, the success of my students, and a brief history about Supreme Court cases dealing with LGBTQ community. When I was diagnosed with HIV in 1986, the life expectancy was 12 to 18 months. One of the questions that I was asked while on tour was, do I have survivor's guilt? The answer is yes. I have lost 3 partners and many friends. Old friends are the best because they have been with you through good times and hard times. I could have had a partner for 30 or 40 years, someone who knows my mood and thoughts without speaking. Is there something wrong? No. Out here? Okay. I felt the echo too, but it's not my area of expertise. there's something about being with someone for a number of years. You get comfortable like an old pair of shoes or the jeans that you don't want to throw out, even though they're torn and tattered. But I didn't have that experience. My experience was losing partners. And so I kind of got good at going through the stages of grief. I was also asked why I did not come out while I was coaching. It was suggested that I could have been a role model for any gays that were on my team. Since 1 out of every 10 people are gay, and my team had 50 students on it, that meant that there was probably at least 4 or 5 gays on my team. While that would have been nice, I'm sure that I would not have been allowed to continue coaching if I had come out. I was not a danger to my students. I treated them as though they were my own children. I popped into classes on my prep period. I walked around the students during lunch to see where they were eating lunch. If they were not eating with the right people, I would pull them aside and say, you need to find someplace else to eat lunch. I also checked with their academic counselors to make sure that they were on track. The worst story I had there is I had a wrestler named Mark Lewis, and he had D's and a couple F's as a freshman. I recruited him to come out for wrestling, and he says, I can't come out for wrestling because I don't have a B average. And I said, well, just come out for the team and we'll get the B average. By the time that he was a junior and senior in high school, he was the editor of the newspaper. He was the co-editor of the yearbook that won an award statewide. So I went to his counselor to get him into a university and found out that he had 5 deficiencies. He did not have enough math classes or upper level math. He did not have enough lab sciences. And I was just really ready to rip into her. Why didn't you take care of this, you know? And then she pointed out to me that every year she got 100 to 150 new students, and that it was really hard to meet and really talk with all the kids that she had on her schedule. I was asked on tour if I felt I hurt the sport of wrestling by coming out. The best answer came from one of my ex-wrestlers, Rich Levitt. He said, no, you're not the only one. You're just the first one. I've completed 15 online classes to become an international human book. This is an organization based out of Copenhagen, and I've participated in 6 human library events. All of my former wrestlers and wrestlerettes are high school graduates and outstanding members in their community. I require that they have a personal portfolio before graduating from high school. I hosted exit interviews to find out what their plan was, what were their goals after high school. And I purchased their gently used wrestling shoes so that I could pass them on to other students. They are police officers, financial aid planners, doctors, lawyers, engineers, and one of my wrestlerettes works for the U.S. government in the diplomatic office. I am fearful each time that she travels to the Far East. Dr. Nick Kahajas is the co-author of the book Wrestling with the Truth. He is the oldest in a single-parent family. He graduated second in his class in high school and with honors from the University of Chicago. While at the university, he was a 2-time NCAA All-American wrestler, which meant that he was in the top 6 in the country. I was born on Thanksgiving Day in 1951. A few weeks before my arrival, my parental grandfather passed away. I have been told that I look just like Papa Shegog. We all have characteristics that are passed on from generation to generation. It may be our eyes, a smile, or even a laugh. These characteristics help us to make up our personality, and without them, we are less rich. Our society is less rich when we exclude marginalized groups. The largest of these groups are the LGBTQ community, since this group crosses every racial and cultural line. Gays have made outstanding contributions to our community. Alan Bruber produced a film in June of 2020 entitled Coming Out Under Fire. It recorded the military service of gays during World War II. For many of these young people, this was the first time opportunity to explore their lives away from home. They were asked if they had ever participated in any homosexual activities. If the answer was yes, then they were given a Section 8 blue card discharge. Their names were published in their hometown papers. Many of them found it hard to find employment, and some of them were sent to mental hospitals. It is estimated that some 9,000 gays served during World War II. In 1953, President Eisenhower signed Executive Order 10450, which banned gays and lesbians from federal employment. As a result, over 5,000 non-combatant workers lost their jobs, which included their health insurance, pension, and sometimes their homes. In 1954, the LGBT community started to form a subculture. They opened businesses, published more books and magazines, organized churches, formed sports teams, and improved poor neighborhoods. Law enforcement officers interpreted that 10450 gave them permission to attack gays. In June of 1969, the police raided the Stonewall Inn in New York City. And although I cannot find any documentation of this, the drag queens at this bar, after they had spent hours fixing their hair, putting on their makeup, said, "Oh, no, you didn't." They took off their 6-inch heels and they attacked the police officers. The other patrons of the bar joined in, and that started 7 days of rioting. Fortunately, no one was killed. Today, each June is called Gay Pride Month worldwide. Gay life has been shaped by several Supreme Court cases. Here are a few of the important cases. In 1958, One Inc. versus Olson, One Inc. won the right to send homosexual books and magazines through the mail, that this mailing did not violate the obscenity laws. In 1972, Baker v. Nelson, Richard Baker and his partner changed their names to Chris and Pat because those are either or names, and they got married in Minnesota. The marriage was ruled invalid by the Supreme Court, and that ruling was overturned in 2018. In 1986, Brower versus Hardwick, the court ruled that sex must be between a man and a woman. The court went beyond the ruling to give employers the right to fire anyone who was in a same-sex relationship. In 1990, the Boy Scouts of America v. Dale versus Dale. James Dale was an assistant scoutmaster who had an outstanding record of service. It was found out that he was gay because he published in college in a gay magazine, and they released him from his position. It worked its way up to the Supreme Court, and the courts ruled 5-4 that the Boy Scouts of America could expel anyone who was not in line with their values. In 2013, the Boy Scouts of America said that they could have gay scouts, but not gay leaders, which doesn't make any sense to me. Because if you're in the Scouts and you really love what the scouts offer you, and then when you turn 18, you can no longer be involved with the scouts. Doesn't make sense. In 1996, Rohr versus Evans ruled that cities could not pass special laws to protect LGBTQ communities. Prior to this, there were gay bashings, and you may not know this, but a lot of gays would wear whistles, and whenever they were being attacked, they would blow the whistle to indicate that they were being attacked. So they were saying that it's okay to attack them. In 1996 also, United States versus Windsor, the court supported the DOMA Act, which was passed by Congress, and it stands for In Defense of Marriage, and stated that a marriage must be between a man and a woman. The court ruled 5-4 that surviving partners could not benefit from any tax exemption or survivor benefits. I had a friend who was caught up in this, and his partner died, and the family came in and said, "You have 1 month to get out." And it's not good, not good. In 2003, Lawrence versus Texas, the court ruled that under the 14th Amendment, that consenting adults could engage in private activities without government intervention. In 2015, Okerfeld versus Hodge, the court ruled that under the 14th Amendment, guaranteeing equal protection under the law, that gays could be, same-sex marriage could be allowed. One of the court cases that supported this was the Loving versus Virginia case. And in this case, there was a white man who was married to a black woman. They lived in Virginia, and they were thrown in jail several times. Their homes were broken into, and they were hauled off to jail. So they finally moved to Washington, D.C. After living in Washington, D.C. for a number of years, they decided they wanted to go back to Virginia, and so they sued to have the right to marry outside their race, and they won. In 2018, the Masterpiece Cupcake Shop versus Colorado, the courts ruled by 7-2 that a private company may refuse service to a same-sex couple if that service violated their religious beliefs. Each of these cases have helped to shape the characteristics, the culture, and personality of the LGBTQ community. The laws are to ensure that all citizens are treated fairly, because all persons are equal, because all persons are beautiful, all persons are whole and a living miracle. All means all. Now, there's a case that's coming up this fall. Kim Davis, who was a county clerk in Rowan County in Kentucky, spent 6 days in jail because she refused to issue a same-sex marriage license. And she was removed from her position. She didn't lose her job, but she moved to a different position. And now she is filing a lawsuit, and that lawsuit has gone through the lower courts, and it will be heard by the Supreme Court this coming October. First of all, the Supreme Court gets lots of cases, and they look at the cases, they review the cases, and then they decide which cases they will hear and which cases they will not hear. They could have refused to hear this case, but with the makeup of the courts right now, they decided to accept this case. If they rule in the favor of Kim Davis, it can erase the Same-Sex Marriage Act that was passed in 2015. So I'm hoping that they don't rule, I hope they rule in the right way. So this is a little example of what's happening with the LGBT community and some of the things that I have faced while I was doing my book tours. On one occasion, we were at Planet Fitness, and we have a big sign. You know, we're not hiding who we are or what the book is about. And a guy came up to me and said, "You know, you're going to hell." And he says, "Can I pray for you?" And I didn't argue with him, even though I didn't believe him. I let him pray and let him walk out. But that kind of attitude I run into all the time. And the thing is that all means all. And if they read their Bible, okay, if they talk about the life of Jesus, the main thing was love. We have to learn to love one another. Thank you.